Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So fast forward and take us to, I love the Quigo story. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard it or seen Mike's been on some other panels where he's talked about this story, but I think it's a great story of how you were recruited to Quigo and then the whole process in which you ultimately sold the company. Do you want to go through that story so that people can hear?
Yeah, it was 2002 when the bubble had burst, and I was working at IAC at the time, Interactive Corp. At the time it was called USA Networks, Barry Diller's company. And it was, frankly, to be honest, it was a place for me to sort of hide until the market came back. And I kind of knew that search was going to be one of the main catalysts that would drive sort of Web 2.0. I feel like we're in Web 3.0 right now, and it's all about social and communication and sharing. 2.0 is all about search, monetization, commerce. And so I started to watch what was happening with Google and around the ecosystem that was forming around Google. It was a very powerful ecosystem. Someone called me up and said, there are these two guys in Israel building this search engine that crawls the web and extracts, information in Arabic and tries to translate it to English and all this kind of stuff. They're working with clandestine governments but they're trying to turn it into a business and it's not working out and so they need help. And so I said, geez, I don't know anything about Israel, I don't know anything about Arabic, I don't know anything about what these guys are doing, enterprise software, but let me take a look. I took a look and realized that it was pretty serious technology and that these guys had a desire to turn it into a big company, they just didn't know what to do. And so I quit my job, I moved into some roach-infested office on 8th Avenue and 38th Street, and they had the big roaches, not the little ones. And we set up shop, and we just basically took this technology that was meant for something completely different, and we turned it into, at first we turned it into a search engine marketing platform that allowed advertisers big advertisers with big websites to pump their content into the search engines. We got that up to about $20 million a year in revenue, and then we saw that Google was getting into the text ad business, Google AdSense famously, and we had technology that could compete with that product. And so we made a really crazy and courageous decision to go into that business. And everyone thought that was crazy, and stupid, and dangerous, and reckless. But we saw an opening in the marketplace, and we saw that what Google was doing was basically auctioning off a keyword and then taking that same advertiser and sticking it on a page and basically charging the same price. And certain pages were worth probably less, and certain pages were worth a lot more. And so I went to David Liu at not.com, anyone know that site? And I said, I'm going to compete with Google. I'm building an ad system that will essentially auction off text ad design content pages. And I said, how would you like it if I could auction off your wedding ring pages for $25 a click? That sounds interesting to you. And he said, you can do that? And I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. And he said, great, I hate Google. Let's do it. And he was my first real big publisher. And we used him to sign brides.com and weddingchannel.com. And we started to talk about starting, narrow into the marketplace. We started with just wedding sites. And then we edged out into travel and sports and all these other sites. And we made a bunch of really important decisions. We decided to stick with just the premium segment of the marketplace. Long story short, we got up to about 3 billion ads a day. Anyone that knows anything about scalability or services, or scaled services, that is a massive service. We had 1,200 servers in production in 3 different data centers across the world. That was back when you had to build all that nasty stuff yourself. We didn't have the cloud back then, not one we trusted. And so we built this massive system. We got up to about 110 employees, 3 offices, $75 million in revenue. A real company, and eventually we were acquired by AOL for $340 million.
But initially they asked you, how much did they want you to sell the company for initially?
So look, it took 5.5 years, and so this event's called Startup Grind. I am a living, breathing example of the grind that it really is. To me, it was a terrible ordeal and process to go through to build a company. And the thing that made it extra hard, and reflecting and looking back, is that I had to compete with Google every day. And most people don't do that, and most people don't do it in one of their core revenue streams, core revenue lines. I did that. I competed against them in one of their core revenue lines. Didn't understand the significance of it at the time, but it was like going against this massive buzzsaw every second of every day. So when I first took over the company as CEO, they said to me, "Look, we pumped $2 million in this thing. If you can get a couple $1 million back, if you can get $5 to $10 million back, we'll be thrilled. We'll give you a big chunk of that. You'll be rich. You'll be excited. You'll be happy." And so I said, "Look, I'm going to do the best job I can. I have no idea what's going to happen." But we went about our business, and within about 6 months of building the product, a guy from Overture at the time, a company called Overture, which later was acquired by Yahoo for $1.6 billion, a guy named Joseph Esses came to us and said, "Hey, can you guys use your technology to serve ads on content pages?" And we said, "Yeah, we think we could do that." So we started to fiddle around with it. We couldn't actually do it at the time, but we lied and said we could. And within about 2 weeks, we had a working prototype, and they came to us and said, "That's pretty good. Would you guys think about licensing it, or better yet, maybe we should just buy you guys?" And I said, "Okay." So I got on a plane and went out there and sat down in Pasadena, California to talk to them, and they said, "Look, we really like what you're doing, and we need to compete against Google, and Google just acquired the only other company in the world that has credible technology, a company called Applied Semantics at the time. So would you guys sell?" And I said, "Well, I guess. What do you have in mind? What's the price?" So they said, "We'll get back to you in a little while." I got back on a plane, and a couple of days later, someone calls me up and says, "We're thinking about a number between $8 and $10 million." And of course, I put the phone down. I'm like, "Holy crap!" 6 months into this thing, this guy's willing to pay us $8 to $10 million for a product that it's not even functionally useful yet. You can't put it into production. You can't really use it. And so I was really excited. I felt like I achieved my goal. I called up the main investor in the company and I said, "Hey Jack, you're never going to believe this. These guys are willing to pay us, I think, up to $10 million. And he said, "Well, that's great, but no chance. No way in the world are we selling this company." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" You said $10 million, that was the goal. And he said, "Well, gosh, if they're willing to pay you $10 million, they're probably willing to pay you $20 million. You just got to wait another 6 months." And so we didn't sell the company, thankfully. We went about our business of building it, and that second offer never came. We turned them into a customer and started to build the business. About 18 months later, I had a similar meeting with a guy named Ross Levinson and Heather Hardy. Heather Hardy became the CEO of TechCrunch. And we were sitting in a room in Los Angeles, ironically, and they slid a paper across the desk and said, "We're really interested in buying you guys. The max we can pay is $175 million." And I about jumped out of my chair and couldn't believe it. I happened to have been with a board member at the time, a guy named Bob Davis, who's a partner at Highland Capital. And I said, "Holy crap!" I kicked him under the table, and you can imagine heart palpitating. And said, "Let us go out in the hallway and talk about this." So I went out there and I was like, "Holy crap, Bob, can you believe this? $175 million? I go, "This is insane." He goes, "No chance." He's like, "We're gonna fight them and try to get $225 million. The board's not behind an offer at $175 million. You can sell for $225." So I got on a plane and went back to New York, and of course a second offer never came. Because they were serious about 175 being the final offer. The thing that was fascinating about this aspect of the story is that by the time I got home, a lot of my team members found out that I had, in essence, rejected a $175 million offer. And they were there with lanterns and pitchforks and lots of other sharp implements waiting for me. And I'm dead serious. They were extremely upset. They thought I had overplayed my hand. I had really screwed things up. We were never going to be better than we were that day. We couldn't keep this up against Google. We're one press release away from being annihilated. That was the mindset of the company. Google could just flip the switch, change a few things, and flip a few dials, and we're out of business. And so we got to go back. And I remember one of my guys. I won't tell you who it is. You guys all know this person. Came to me and said, "Look, you're overplaying your hand. You're going to lose half the team. They think you're crazy. They think you're hyperbolic, all this kind of stuff. You've got to fix this. You got to go back and take the offer." And I said, "I can't do it. The board's not behind it, and there is no second offer." I did my best, and I had, we're still growing by 50-60% a year. I don't think that's going to stop. So, get a hold of yourself. I basically said to him, I have more confidence in the team than the team has in itself. And acquiescing to the angry mob is not leadership. And I'm not going to buckle under the pressure because there are a few visionless people on this team. Sadly, that episode, one of the most troubling episodes ever in my career, because I thought people would be excited, and instead they were very upset, caused me to lose a bunch of my key people. Now, one of the untold stories at Quigo was we had probably one of the best tech teams to ever grace the city of New York. I had hired the sitting CTO of eBay, a guy named Marty Abbott. He brought his best friend from West Point, a guy named Michael Fisher, who was the sitting head of engineering at PayPal. And they brought two of the top engineers from eBay, who happened to be the number 4 and number 6 engineers from Apple Computer. And they brought all their friends. And so I brought about 10 to 12 of the top engineers in the world from Silicon Valley to New York, and had them here for basically the entire time. And so we built an extraordinary team. Now, one of those leaders ended up leaving because of this episode, along with a few of the other people in tech team, because they just thought that we had peaked. Things were never going to get better, and they were going to look for the next shiny new object, and we weren't it anymore in their eyes. And then, of course, this was in late 2005. Fast forward to 2006. We get to about the end of the year, and I had my last board meeting of the year, and I went in and I said, we've got to sell this company. Now's the time. I said, and I was thinking very locally at the time, I said, the real estate market makes no sense. I can't even buy an apartment. The prices in Manhattan are crazy. They're going up like 1% a month. Like this is not right. And I'm fearful that there's going to be a real estate recession, and that it's going to drag the entire economy down. And so we should sell before that happens. And my board was like, no way, not a single economist in the world is predicting a recession, and all this kind of stuff. But they eventually realized that I was dead serious, and my legs were getting tired, as they say. And so we decided to call Goldman Sachs, and we called Goldman Sachs in. And at the time, we had Microsoft and Yahoo and AOL sniffing around and making overtures about the company. And we basically turned that energy into an auction process, which led 6 months later to the sale of the company. So that's kind of how we did it. And one of the interesting things about that process was we had an auction, and within 2 rounds of getting bids from our buyers, they all disappeared. They all went away. So we went from having a viable sale process, an auction process, to having no auction process and no buyer. And that was really scary. About halfway through the process, Goldman Sachs had tipped off all the buyers that, hey, this company's going to sell for $500 million. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And we told them not to do that, but they did it. And it basically scared away Yahoo. And AOL found out that Yahoo got scared away, and they called us up and said, what the hell's going on here? We don't think there's anyone else in this process. So we're pulling out. And we ended up having no sale, no deal, no anything, and a completely dejected and demoralized workforce. Now, luckily, I had put, about 3 months prior to this, I had placed one person on my advisory board. I had an advisory board. I had one person on it. It was the former EVP VP of Time Inc., a guy named Jack Hare, who happened to have been golf buddies with the president of AOL. And I put them on my advisory board because I knew they were buddies and I knew AOL was a likely buyer of the company someday. So I called Jack up and I said, "You're never going to believe this. The deal is dead. We're not getting acquired." He said, "What do you mean? What happened?" I thought AOL was going to be the winner. And I said, "Yeah, but they disappeared. The process broke down, and I think it's overpriced." And he said, "Well, it just happens to be that I'm playing golf with a guy named Mike Kelly on Sunday." Mike Kelly was the president of AOL at the time. He goes, "What do you want me to say to him, if anything?" And I said, "Just tell him that we're not as far apart as he thinks. We can get something done." And so he ends up playing golf with Mike Kelly. Then that Monday morning, I get a call from Anisha Kumar, who's the CFO of AOL, and she says, "Hey, we're going to spend 24 hours negotiating man-to-man with you. Get rid of your bankers and your advisors and everyone else because they're just screwing this thing up. And if we can get a deal done, a handshake in 24 hours, you got a deal." And I called up my board and I said, "Holy crap, this thing's back on." I got back on the phone. I negotiated the price up. At the time, the price was $320 million. I got it to $340 million, and then I said, "Hey, by the way, you wouldn't mind if we got to keep our cash, would you?" And she said, No, you get some cash in the bank, no problem." So I said, "Oh, great, that's awesome." So I went back and I said, "Hey, we got a deal, we can keep our cash." She calls me up a few hours later and goes, "By the way, how much cash do you have in the bank?" And I go, 21 million. And she said, "Oh, I didn't know that." I said, "Well, yeah, we had raised $21 million about 6 months ago." And so it ended up being really $361 million, but that's how the deal got done. It was a crazy process. By the way, it leads to a host of issues that we all grapple with as entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs these days. I was marginally profitable as a company. 6 months prior, I knew I was going to be acquired, and I still went out and raised $20 million. So I had a huge war chest of cash in the bank. The reason why I did that is because I didn't need it, but I also didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was lurking around the corner. Was there a recession coming? And if there was a recession coming, was I going to get acquired or not? If I didn't get acquired and the recession did come, and I knew I had a bunch of really tired people on my team, I was probably going to have to swap out a lot of my senior people, right? I was going to basically have to rebuild the entire company. And so that would have taken a lot of money. And so I had raised a ton of cash simply because I didn't know what was going to happen in the world. And consequently, what happened was I ended up sending it back out to all the investors as a dividend, essentially. And so basically, everyone got the money back. So it wasn't a tragedy dilution-wise or anything like that. But it raises a lot of questions. You always want a lot more money than you really need, and sometimes you don't know what you really need. And so I'm kind of a contrarian when it comes to raising money and worrying about dilution and all that kind of stuff. Believe me, when I got to that finish line and that wire transfer hit my bank account, I was not worrying about the percentage points that I lost previously in previous capital raises. I was just damn excited that it happened and feeling extremely fortunate.